wider war shows no sign of coming to a close anytime soon. And in fact, the attention now is whether this war escalates into a war between Israel and Iran, or indeed a wider war, because Iran has said that if Israel attacks Iran, then it will attack every American asset and every American base and every country hosting American bases in the Middle East. So the prospect of this being a wider conflagration across the entire Middle East is what's in question now. It was a very calculated and calibrated attack in order to actually meet what Iran regarded as an important threshold being crossed by Israel, the attack on what it regards as its sovereign territory in the embassy in Damascus, that it felt it had to respond to. But it responded in a way that was deliberately designed to actually give the maximum appearance of a large attack without any of the consequences of a large attack. So it was done after signaling. The targets chosen were not cities, but actually military bases that tend to be airstrips that tend not to be well populated. It was done at night. It was done at the weekend, again, so no one was on the street. And it was done mostly using drones rather than the vast array of military assets that Iran has in terms of ballistic missiles, which could be more effective. And it wasn't done in coordination with a huge attack from Hezbollah in Lebanon. So in many ways, it was calculated not to kill anybody. It was calculated, obviously very risky, it could have done so, but it was calculated to actually be overwhelmed by the Israeli forces in a way that actually allows Iran to save face by saying we've launched this attack against Israel without it going up the escalation ladder far enough that it would demand that Israel would feel obliged to respond by attacking Iranian territory too. Of course, that doesn't rule out the possibility that Israel will do that, but it's remarkable as an analyst looking at the way in which this was a well thought out, calibrated attack by Iran on Israel on this occasion.
I'm seeing in the screens now on NBC News, Joe Biden has been saying that Israel should take the win. However, we've heard today that Israel has been saying Iran confrontation not over yet. What would it take, in your view, for Israel to draw a line under this and not react any further?
Well, again, there's precedent here. So in 2020, you may remember President Trump killed a high-ranking Iranian general in Iraq, and Iran responded by attacking a US airbase with 100 cruise missiles. No one was killed there, and President Trump decided at that point not to respond to Iran, and that's what the Americans will be urging the Israelis to do. And there has been Israeli Air Force action in southern Lebanon today. Perhaps that could be judged as a response. It may well be that Israel could perhaps launch a large cyber attack on Iran and feel that actually that would satisfy its need for revenge, a cyber attack possibly that wouldn't kill anybody. But again, if Israel is going to attack Iran, it needs to be careful that it's equally calibrated and therefore doesn't kill anybody or go in that direction, or indeed that itself could be regarded by Iran as a provocation for it to get into another round of brinkmanship and escalation. Both sides regard these as important thresholds. Both sides are trying to calibrate their response. But the danger is that this tit for tat, this eye for an eye approach, leads to widening escalation. And the Americans are very keen to try and rein back the Israelis from doing this. How successful they will be, and that remains to be seen.
David, how is this going to affect the conflict in Gaza? Because let's not forget that this all stems from the conflict in Gaza.
Yeah, and it's really interesting as far as Israel is concerned, is that Israel can now play the victim card. That it changes the news cycle, it changes the headlines. So what Israeli spokesmen are out there doing now is saying, look at the way in which our coalition of allies have responded to this unjustified attack on us overnight, and therefore Israel is pushing the narrative onto talking about this rather than it's killing the aid workers, it's a humanitarian crisis on its borders caused by airstrikes, and indeed the lack of progress on any political progress towards a new ceasefire. So I mean, there doesn't seem to be any immediate prospect of a ceasefire. It may even be that actually the Iranian action is in some ways a shot across Israel's bows about not going further in terms of actually its planned attack on the south of the Gaza Strip into Raqqa. We don't know that, but these are all posturing moves that are part of the wider diplomatic dance. Uh, but actually, the wider war shows no sign of coming to a close anytime soon. And in fact, the attention now is whether this war escalates into a war between Israel and Iran, or indeed a wider war, because Iran has said that if Israel attacks Iran, then it will attack every American asset and every American base and every country hosting American bases in the Middle East. So the prospect of this being a wider conflagration across the entire Middle East is what's in question now.
And finally, David, do you think that what we're hearing from the US, which is Joe Biden, I think the words he used was take the win. Do you think the US are powerful enough when it comes to their relationship with Israel to prevent Israel from taking actions and reciprocating the attack that we saw yesterday?
What we've seen really since October 7th is the way in which Netanyahu has gone his own way and has frustrated the Americans by not taking the advice for restraint that they have urged right from the beginning in this conflict. What we have seen is Netanyahu, whose personal political position is often his first consideration rather than the wider implications of that, not taking the advice of the United States. And the United States has been often criticized for not pushing hard enough. Many people have said that Biden should go to Israel and actually appeal to the Israeli people or talk to the Israeli parliament in a sense to try and go over the head of Netanyahu, who doesn't seem to be responding to the American agenda. The Americans seem to be quite limited in their ability or willingness to haul in Netanyahu, and what we have as a consequence of as an actor who is acting as he sees fit, rather than actually the wider interests of the broader Middle East or indeed the Americans' perspective on this.